nobody says bad things about the Atlas. I put both of these on a scale, made several comparative measurements, and noted a lot of the similarities and differences between these two cases. Hey guys, thanks for checking out another episode of Dirt Road Therapy. I'm John, and today I have the opportunity to compare this Colossus D300 from Behemoth Drivetrain to the Atlas from Advanced Adapters. This is an all billet machined housing. They make this entirely in the USA, in-house, in their facility in Kentucky. I'm here at Mount Zion Off-Road today, checking out a really cool product from Behemoth Drivetrain. You guys have seen the Behemoth products that I'm running in the XJ here, giving me a 7-to-1 crawl ratio. The reason that I'm here at this shop is because we have an Atlas sitting right here, and the Atlas is kind of the gold standard, where the bar is set for off-road transfer cases that are known to be basically indestructible, race ready, and gear driven in an aluminum housing, machined, built by Advanced Adapters. I mean, nobody says bad things about the Atlas. It's a stout transfer case that has stood the test of time. So I wanted to kind of hold this guy, the Colossus Dana 300 transfer case, up to the Atlas. Now, I've heard people say before that the Atlas is based on a Dana 300. I'm not going to be able to open this thing up, or this one really, and do a side-by-side comparison of all the nitty-gritty components inside of them. But I think you can tell they're a similar footprint, and there are some very noticeable differences right off the bat. So without further ado, let's get into what we've got in front of us here, what the differences between these two off-road transfer cases are. All right, so this is Behemoth Drivetrain's kind of flagship product, their Dana 300 or D300 Colossus transfer case. This is an all billet machined housing. They make this entirely in the USA, in-house, in their facility in Kentucky. Now, it was a pretty cool process getting this transfer case. As soon as it was ordered, I got an email confirmation, and then throughout the build process, I got updates telling me what stage of production my entire order was in. And if there's something that can ship first, it will, such as the shifters might be in stock on the shelf and ready to go. They can send you those, and you can start playing around with where you're going to fit the shifters on your build. Now, there's a ton of different options, so take a look at their website as far as inputs, outputs, flanges, shifters, whatever your setup is going to be, whether it's a buggy, whether it's a truggy, or just a full vehicle build such as the spool bus, you got a lot of options to choose from there to make sure that this is going to be the best fit in your scenario. So what we have here is this would be the input shaft on this transfer case, and this is set up to bolt right to the back of a transmission. That would be a 2-speed transfer case, which is going to have high range and low range, just like you'd expect from any 4-wheel drive truck or SUV. Not some of the newer like all-wheel drive stuff like the new Bronco Sport or Subaru, things like that. But a 2-speed transfer case that if you see that on their website, or if you're looking at Atlas, 2-speed means it has high range and 1 low range. A 4-speed transfer case has 2 low ranges, which basically then gives you a lot more options for a deep crawl ratio. So essentially, this is 4-to-1 internal gearing. You could add another 2.73-to-1 to multiply that on the front. That's what I have in here, is their strong box doubler, and that's just a gear reduction unit that goes between the transmission and the transfer case. This one, like I said, is ready to bolt right up to the back of a Jeep transmission like the AX15 or the AW4, and the shifter setup is cable, and this would, depending on how you have this clocked, this would either go on the front or back, and how you want your cables routed is going to determine that as well. But we've got the same beautiful billet shifters like we have on the new version of the flip kit, the twin stick flip kit that I have, and that feels extremely solid when I go to use that. So they're billet shifters here, extremely beautiful build, and it's a little bit difficult to shift things when it's not moving, but when that's free to move, it's very positive, locking into place. That would be low range, and I could shift it up into, and that would be high range. So while we have the Atlas here, let's talk about some of the major differences. I put both of these on a scale, and you know, just by appearances, the Atlas looks like it would be chunkier, more dense, and a little bit heavier. And that is not untrue. The Atlas is definitely a little bit beefier. It would be cool if we could weigh just the bare cases from each of these, but I'm unable to do that. However, the internal gearing should be approximately the same weight. So there is some weight savings with the fact that this is billet machined. This is out of one single piece of aluminum. This is a casting that is then machined, and there are some billet parts on it by the looks of it, but you know, that would basically just be this clocking ring on the front at a glance. The weight difference came out to be just over 20 pounds. Now, when we're talking about big heavy vehicles where, you know, we're going to weld a piece of tube on here or there, that might just be for a little bit of extra strength and rigidity. 25 pounds adds, you can get that very quickly. So it's not probably a decision point for most people, but it is significant. If it's something, I think where you would care about that weight the most is in a race application where you might be pulling this apart and taking it out of the vehicle frequently. And just the size of it makes it a little bit easier to manhandle as well. We've got a distance here. Now I realize these flanges are different, so I'm going to give you kind of a bunch of information here to go with, but I've got 8 inches from where the transmission output would bolt onto this to this flange output here. That's incredibly short. On the Atlas, we're looking at about 13¼ inches from where the transmission would mate to where the U-joint would go on this. And I'm measuring this flange, we'll be generous, it's less than an inch, but I'm measuring that at about an inch. We've got 2½ from where I'm measuring there to that U-joint. So subtract an 1.5 inches. So we're talking 11 3/4, 12 inches, somewhere in there, versus 8. That is a really significant difference. When you're building something like short wheelbase, like a TJ or a CJ5, a flat fender, something like that, that you want to be an absolute rock machine, that distance really matters. So if you pair that with a shorter transmission and a short transfer case like this, even the doubler on the front of this is going to add about 7 inches too. So I'm not sure what Atlas's 4-speed does, but it's the same idea where they add another gear reduction box in the front like a doubler. So that's, I think, going to be your biggest significant difference there, is the shortness of this. Now, there are a bunch of different flange options, like I said, for both. So Atlas may have a shorter output as well. So let's just take a look at overall case width, because they're not making a thinner version of the Atlas. We've got 5 1/8 there, and I won't even measure this output here. We're at 5 3/4 here. So, you know, if I were to add in this like clocking ring front input seal, I'm not sure, you know, if there's a lot of variations there. That's an inch. So we're looking at 6 3/4 versus 5 1/8. So again, significant difference. You're not going to slim that off of the Atlas. Again, I'm not here to tell you not to buy an Atlas. The Atlas is, like I said, kind of sets the bar for transfer cases, and these things are known to be rock solid. So another option, or another difference here to look at. I mentioned the shifters on this. Now these are manipulating shift forks inside there to engage the different gear sets. And it's going to be the same idea in the Atlas. However, their design is kind of more similar to what you have in some of the older NP stuff like the NP205, NP203, and even the original setup on a Dana 300, where it uses these shift rails, and I can't even move these by hand. But if you were to have this, you're building a buggy, super basic, super simple, they will provide you with a shift levers like this, and these would just work those shift rails, high, low for front and rear. They do offer a bunch of different cable setup options as well, similar to this. However, I feel like just that little bit of leverage on these tends to probably make this feel a little bit better coming in and out of gear. As far as I know, Behemoth does not offer any direct linkage options for this transfer case, but that could certainly be fabricated. Would not be terribly difficult to do that. However, the cable setup in most cases, because you can get all different lengths of cable all across the board from super short to super long, cable's going to be probably your easiest and best option. Here's a comparison between the new billet shifters from Behemoth Drivetrain and the shifters that I have on my setup, which are all made out of steel. You can also see the billet base and pivot point is much beefier than the steel version. That kind of covers the main differences between the Atlas and the D300 Colossus. Now, Atlas does have a race-ready version of their transfer case. This one's a pretty early Atlas, but they haven't changed significantly over the years. Their race-ready version is a little bit heavier duty, and it is, I think, close to $1,000 more. I'll post all that pricing information as text in this video, but again, there are a number of build options for both. They're extremely customizable, and Behemoth, not that it's a performance enhancing aspect, but they do offer some different colors as well. I think there's just a lot of pros to the billet machining of this. Race car builders for decades have gone to billet as kind of the top tier product to be, or raw material to be building from. So there's a lot to be said about the billet, as well as the thickness or thinness of this transfer case. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If this was helpful to you, please like, subscribe. There's gonna be a whole lot more awesome content right here for you guys coming up in the near future. Don't forget to check out Behemoth Drivetrain's website. I've also got a discount code just for you guys, and I've got a bunch of other great discount codes as well for all viewers. It is tinyurl.com/DRT discounts. That link, of course, is below, and any purchase you make there, of course, does help out the channel. As always, thanks so much for watching. Stay slow, stay curious. Behemoth can help you stay slow. I'll see you guys next time.